I got a very important question for everyone right now. How would you react if you heard that going forward, all of FromSoft's games were exclusive to PlayStation? I know. It would be an absolute nightmare for everyone who is not into the Sony platform and everything. But there is a chance that could be happening if you have not been keeping up with the gaming news and everything. Last week, FromSoftware, a parent company, I should say, not FromSoftware themselves, but FromSoftware's company, the aka Kadokawa, and Sony have apparently been in talks for some time now when it comes to joining forces. And a lot of people and a lot of articles have been focusing only on the gaming aspect of it, which, to be fair, that is what FromSoftware is known for. But Kadokawa is not only known for that. And we're going to get into that in just a second here. The big thing that I've been seeing is where you have a lot of people over in Western countries, so think America and Europe and everything, focusing only on that, saying, oh God, this is a terrible move and everything. Why would they ever do this? We don't need this right now. And then you actually come to the home country of both of these companies, which is Japan. And for the most part, a lot of people are kind of like, yeah, actually, I'm kind of okay with it. And there are some reasons behind it and what eventually would happen down the road that they would have to potentially change. But it's an interesting dynamic to see. So we're going to talk about that right here on Direct Gaming. So make sure you sub if you happen to be new. But right now, there is apparently talks where both of these companies are going to be joined forces. And if you don't know who Kadokawa is, not only are they the parent company of FromSoftware, they are also the owners of a lot of different anime and manga companies as well, which, as you might know, is super huge here in Japan. And one of the things that Sony's already known for right now, especially in the West, is being basically having a monopoly when it comes to streaming anime. I believe as of right now, they own Funimation and Crunchyroll. Those, I guess, merged a while ago. I'm a little out of the loop when it comes to those particular two companies because I don't have to go through those to watch anime or anything like that since I actually do live in Japan. But that's how a lot of people over in the West get their anime and everything. And a lot of people are worried now that if Sony gets this, that's just simply, again, a giant monopoly right there. Not to mention the fact that we said at the very beginning of the video here, where if they get FromSoftware games, that means Elden Ring 2, that means the Bloodborne stuff, that means Sekiro, all those games could be exclusive to PlayStation only. I mean, we all kind of have this kind of tinfoil hat theory that Sony has this emergency break the glass thing where if something is going terribly wrong, they simply break the glass. Oh, Bloodborne remake. And that's just going to, print millions and millions of copies, which I could definitely see the point of that. But the big question comes, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And what's going to happen? Because like I said before, the West especially is focusing on one aspect of it, whereas the other are focusing on either the entire company or other sections of it too particularly. So I want to ask you guys right now, both in the comments and of course joined by Lemon here as always, what do you think? What is your personal thoughts and opinion on this? If this goes through, let's say hypothetically this goes through, because as of right now, they're apparently still within negotiations. What do you think is going to happen if this goes through? Lemon, as someone who lives over in the West right now, what are your thoughts on all this?
So ignoring the other potential buyers and bidders, I am concerned, if only because, as you mentioned, Sony already owns Crunchyroll and they own Funimation. They have effectively a monopoly on anime in the West. And as an American, I am very familiar with monopolies, as we have ISPs that are monopolies. That's the norm. So I'm used to monopolies. However, it does kind of raise a bit of an issue, just because, if they can keep jacking the price up of Crunchyroll. So I mean, at this point, there is only Crunchyroll. If you want anime, there are kind of bidding fights when it comes. Netflix is trying to get into anime really badly. I think Amazon's kind of given up on it by now. Hulu has anime, but it's more just kind of stuff they already have on Crunchyroll. So it really is just Crunchyroll for new stuff, and then scraps for the other services. So Evangelion pops up randomly. I think Evangelion's on Netflix now. But it's just, I don't know. It's not, monopolies are never good for the consumer.
No, they're not.
And so Sony going after Kadokawa, which is not a streaming service. They don't have a streaming service as far as I'm aware. However, that would kind of gobble up I I actually don't know what you call Kadokawa, because I mean they own I'm guessing a lot of anime studios, because
they own Kadokawa owns a bunch of studios that then make that anime. So then if Sony owns the rights to those, essentially, they can then put that anime first or timed exclusive or only on their particular platform, at least in the West. In Japan, not so much. I can pretty much find any anime I want within any streaming service, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, and the amount of, Japanese only streaming services that they have here. I think one is called FOD, FOD. I see it for commercials on the train all the time. You can find all that anime there. Essentially, it doesn't matter. Like, I can go on the Netflix, I can watch Pokemon. And I could go over to Amazon, I'm going to find Pokemon there as well. I could go over to the FOD service, I'm going to find Pokemon there as well. So you can pick whichever one you want. But in terms of the West, I know it's a lot different, obviously.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So kind of, as I'm describing this, I'm thinking, like, it's not going to, I don't think Sony buying Kadokawa would be that detrimental to the way it is here, because they already effectively own the, I guess dedicated anime streaming service, because there is really nothing else at this point. There's High Dive, and that's about it.
I don't even know what High Dive is, but okay.
From an anime standpoint, I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. The problem is more, and I don't want to steal your thunder here, the other potential bidders. So I'll let you go into that.
Okay, so the other potential bidders, if you don't know, the big one is, it should be no shock if you've been just within media itself for the last 10 years. Tencent is apparently looking to acquire Kadokawa as well. And what I mentioned beforehand, when it comes to the reactions from those in the West, the Western countries, compared to here in Japan, a lot of people here in Japan are like, Sony, do it. Just do it. Because they would rather keep both of these, Kadokawa, they'd rather keep Kadokawa in Japan, because they're Japan based and everything, and not see it go to Tencent. And a lot of comments or people that you can see online or anything, they're like, you know what, get them right now, and we'll deal with it eventually when it comes to potentially breaking you guys up in the future and everything, because Japanese law is very different, and it's very tricky actually to get a merger like this going. So there's actually, within the courts, at least here in Japan, it could be a pretty difficult fight. We're not really sure how that's going to go and everything. But regardless, a lot of people here are just like, nah, take them now. We'll deal with that stuff later. We don't want to go to Tencent. That's just the way it is. And then the final bit to it is the FromSoftware side of things, where, yeah, obviously it's a much smaller part of it compared to the rest of it, because remember, Kadokawa is not only giving them games, it's giving them anime, manga, even magazines, which are still popular here in Japan, not necessarily over in the West these days, but they're still popular over here. So I think that's what Sony's mainly looking at. The FromSoftware side is kind of like an added bonus to get things like Elden Ring and potential sequels and all that kind of stuff. So, or maybe Sony, because say what you will about Sony, as greedy as, shocker, they're a greedy company and everything, just like every single company is. For the most part, when it comes to their games, at least with some of the brands that are popular and do well, can't speak for everything, Team Japan, they basically let them be alone to make their games. The big question becomes, though, is all of these games that have been multi-platform for however long they've been around for, depending on which one it is, whether it's Elden Ring, Sekiro, etc., are those going to stay multi-platform and Sony's going to reap the benefit of all those numbers? Or are they going to try and push it to be Sony/PlayStation only? Or do we mainly see something where maybe we see Elden Ring 2 go multi-platform, but then Sony has a section of whatever amount of people working under FromSoftware make something, exclusive to PlayStation? What's going to happen there? Because Sony, as of late, is putting all their stuff onto PC right now, whether it's either delayed a little bit or at the same time in terms of their live service stuff. Xbox, to our knowledge right now, they claim to be making a new box for whatever the next gen is going to be. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, in my personal opinion at least. Whether that is the handheld that they're going to be doing or anything, because of their whole, this is an Xbox marketing thing now to basically say you can play Xbox games anywhere. So, and potentially Elden Ring 2 maybe even gets to play on the Switch. Would Sony really turn a blind eye to that amount of Switch 2, sales they could potentially get? It's hard to say. And I'm not really sure. Lemon, what do you think? Do you think they go multi-platform, or just overall general? Just what are your thoughts when it comes to whether it's a multi-platform push, going all in on just simply being exclusive, or what we talked about previously when it comes to how Japan versus the West is looking at this just in general?
I just don't see Sony going multi-platform. By multi-platform, I mean more than just PC and PlayStation.
Right.
I just don't think it's worth their time. I don't think they consider it worth their time. I think the Xbox really doesn't have a whole lot of way anymore, so I don't really care about that. And the Nintendo with the Switch, Horizon. I hear
that Horizon Lego game. I heard that flops.
I heard it sold like ass, so I don't think Sony's like, yeah, I don't think that's really gonna be worth our time anymore, and they have to contend with the Switches and potentially Switch 2's anemic likely performance relative to the PS5, PS5 Pro into the PS6.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see that being something worth their time. However, we are talking about a potential merger. They've written a letter of intent stating, hey, we want to buy this company before their stock goes up any more than it already has, costing Sony more. So I think it's too early to talk about that. However, and this is more just a kind of a statement on the general video game landscape we find ourselves in, I don't think it matters. I don't think it really would put a dent in Elden Ring 2, hypothetical, Elden Ring 2 if it didn't come on the Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would come on the PC.
Right.
Because Sony's, that's what they're doing. That. At least they're trying to. They're trying to go on PC. They're very slow about it, and I think that's a whole other video about their latency, how slow they are to push things to PC. However, I just don't think that it's really going to make a dent. I generally believe Elden Ring 2, long story short, TLDR would go on PC at the same time as PlayStation, PS6, PS5 Pro, whatever.
I could see that. Yeah, I easily could see that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the sales for Elden Ring were from both PlayStation and PC. I mean, we know that based on the Steam charts, Elden Ring hit up to close to 1 million all-time peak players, 953,426. And for the DLC, they got to about 781,000. So I don't think Sony would want to all of a sudden remove those sales right there. I think that would be stupid of them.
I think at the end of the day, though, I just don't know what Sony would gain out of this, though.
Out of the FromSoftware stuff, or of making it exclusive?
Well, just so if you look at the Kadokawa potential buyout from a video game standpoint, I don't know what they would get out of this. Like, FromSoft is good. It's like I said, at least it's in the media side of things. It's the anime, it's the manga, it's all that stuff that Sony's looking at. That's what they want. For sure, which is why I just do not understand why everyone's so focused on the video game part of it.
I think because
that's my issue with all of this.
I think because the platforms and the websites and everything that have reported on this mostly get a lot of video game enthusiasts that read their articles and make content on it and everything. And so everyone's going to focus. Again, literally, when you Google Sony and Kadokawa, you do not see anything about anime, about manga, or magazines or anything. It's all about FromSoftware, which is a small section. As good as FromSoftware is, it's a small section compared to the rest of what Sony would get if they acquired them and everything. So I think people need to understand that. I understand from a gamer's aspect being nervous about not getting potential games in the future, but Elden, looking at the games that they make, they release on 3 platforms: PlayStation, PC, and Xbox. And if Xbox is going into their full-on multi-platform thing, and especially down the line, if they don't make consoles anymore or hardware essentially, and it's just simply play wherever you wanted to, it's still like the game would still release on the Xbox store. Just simply, you stream it from your phone, you do this or whatever the case is, or again, you just use if they finally make the Xbox store decent on PC, then people buy it there, or maybe Game Pass or whatever eventually, then what's left? PlayStation and PC. I'll go on there anyway, so I think it would probably just stay the way it is, to be perfectly honest. I could be wrong. We could be absolutely wrong, and next thing you know, this goes through, and it's like, oh, by the way, this happens. It absolutely could. I personally don't see it happening. And I think the bigger thing that a lot of people, again, like you said, Lemon, that no one's really focusing on is the fact that Sony wants this for the media side of things.
Yeah.
FromSoftware is just a bonus. It's a bonus that they get.
And so, it might just be, as you said, it's just more just because where you get the media from is just more video game focused than anime or all that.
Yes, exactly.
It's a kind of a nothing burger as far as I'm concerned for the video game side, but for the media side, non-video game media side, it's a pretty big deal, and I'm mildly concerned. I mean, there is no good answer to this.
It's like you said, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, there is no good ending for this. Sony getting Kadokawa leads to a monopoly, and if Tencent gets to it, then we're gonna have even worse anime and manga than we have now.
I think Sony has the money to do it, no problem, because they didn't go through with their what was it, Paramount? I believe they tried to buy a while ago, and they had that money set aside apparently, based on what was being reported.
Paramount?
But I don't know, who was it?
Well, no, because now you're getting into like Sony movies and stuff, which I don't know how
they were gonna buy somebody. I don't remember who it was. It was a giant.
I'm sure they were.
It was some kind of streaming service / media.
No, it might have been Paramount. Like the Western kind of movie studios are very much in dire straits. WB is in dire straits. Yeah. Paramount ain't doing so hot.
Yeah, so like, I might have been right in the Paramount, but regardless though, they didn't go through with it, and they had that money set aside apparently. But then the rumor mill essentially was that they saw the financial stuff and they're like, nope, pull out now. Essentially.
Well, and also depending on what the administration was at the time when they wanted to do it, the FTC might have also tried to step in. Not that we saw them do anything for Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly.
Fighting them, buying out Activision, but
exactly. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but regardless, they would probably do it. And I think the only obstacle that they potentially have to deal with is simply the courts over here in Japan and those laws that they have to abide by. But if the majority of Japan here wants to at least keep Kadokawa within Japan and not go over to Tencent, that might be enough to say, okay, we'll go through and we'll deal with you guys later in terms of if we need to potentially break you up or do anything like that in the future. So we will. That's
such a weird standpoint though, because I understand Kadokawa wants to sell. But they're not going out of business. There's no reason for Kadokawa to go away.
My guess is based on Tencent making an offer and they are not, and maybe the board, maybe with some boards or something like that are interested in it, and Kadokawa is just like, crap, we're gonna get bought regardless. Maybe we get at least Sony to buy us right now. I'm not really sure though. I'm taking a wild guess on that point. So
they've made it clear that the board wants to sell. Right. It's just one of those things where they didn't need to sell.
They don't need to. Yeah, that is another thing. Yeah, they don't need to sell. But the board wants to sell for some reason. So.
Yeah, no, the board wants to cash out. They're just tired of the shit and they want out.
They want their money.
I kind of get that, but at the same time, it's like them wanting to cash out really kind of puts a lot of places in a rock and a hard place.
It does. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen, but it's going to be an interesting next, I'd say, year and a half, seeing how this all goes. So we'll have to wait and see.